Hey guys, what's up? I'm Ray Jones and this is Evan Harold coming from Miss Dawson's 8th grade classroom. And this is the Make You Pass podcast, the show that guarantees you'll pass your favorite class for the GMAS. Today we have a special guest, Molly Cool, and we're talking about our final unit, which is World War II.
Yay! World War II, the Second World War.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the Georgia's involvement, and then the U.S. involvement, and some, important people that we had to mention. So, yeah. So the first thing is we're going to talk about the impact of key events leading to the U.S.'s involvement in World War II. So this includes the Great Depression, which put Georgia in economic poverty. So it made the states, acceptable to, they couldn't quite handle themselves. And the Great Depression just put us in economic poverty. Then there's FDR.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Yeah, and
he had a large impact on Georgia. He helped build up the USA economy through the New Deal.
Thanks, Molly.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate that. Yeah, he did. And then there's another thing, which I feel like we all know as the start of U.S. involvement in World War II, which was Pearl Harbor. So on December 7th, 1941, Japanese pilots fired a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor off the coast of Hawaii. With no mercy and no warning, this suicide bombing impacted thousands of Americans, and they attacked us first, so then we kind of have to attack back. Our special guest Molly left, so I hope you enjoyed her quick 2-second interval in our podcast.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then the Lend-Lease Act, which we will talk about more in literally 2 seconds. But then there's another thing.
2. Terms and motivations behind the Lend-Lease Act. March 19th, 1941. The Lend-Lease Act was an act that allowed the U.S. government to send billions and billions of dollars in supplies and military equipment to allied countries in exchange for United States rights and their military bases.
Yeah.
Giving President Roosevelt virtually unlimited authority to direct material aids such as ammunition, tanks, airplanes, trucks, and food to the war effort from Europe without violating the nation's official position of neutrality. By the end of the war, the United States had extended over $49 billion in Lend-Lease aid
You got it.
nearly 14 nations.
Yeah, so basically this is a way for the United States to contribute to the war without actually being in the war. So they contributed, gave a lot of supplies and stuff to their allied countries that needed help, while still being sort of neutral on the topic, even though we're not really neutral.
Not very much.
Another 2 things we have to talk about are the really cool people of Georgia that impacted this. That's Carl Vinson and Richard Russell. So Carl Vinson, he's known as the father of the two-ocean Navy, and he spent 51 years in the House of Representatives, which is the longest time ever in U.S. history. He advocated for a strong U.S. military, especially the Navy, and as the chairman of the House Naval Affairs Committee from 1931 to 1947, Vinson pushed through Congress 2 bills to expand naval aviation by building 10,000 planes and the training of 16,000 pilots and the establishment of 20 air bases, as well as the construction of new naval facilities. And then another thing is that over 90% of the workforce of Georgia military installations were civilians, and over 20,000 jobs were brought to the local communities, all with the help of Carl Vinson. So then Richard Russell.
And then we got the economic and military contributions of Richard Russell. Richard Russell, he served on the Armed Service and Appropriations Committee. He was influential in bringing in or maintaining 15 military bases in the state, along with many other research facilities, including the CDC.
Founder of the CDC, guys.
The CDC. And he was one of the youngest people ever elected to the Georgia General Assembly. He advocated for a strong military in the 1930s, and he helped the U.S. prepare to fight in World War II. Russell's strong segregationist belief caused him to oppose many civil rights bills during his current year.
Yeah, so maybe he wasn't, the best person socially, but he did help with the CDC and a bunch of research facilities and maintaining naval bases or military bases. So yeah, I mean, he did some quite good stuff for us, even if he was, a segregationist. So, and then quite some other things we can talk about is the impact that it had on Georgia. So the social, political, and economic impact that World War II had on Georgia, socially and technically economically. Divorce rates rose as many families struggled to readjust, and many children were born into fatherless homes due to the war. Economically, demands for goods and prices went up. Georgia's economy got better after the Great Depression, and since the U.S. was on the winning side, they also got a lot of money, and they made Georgia able to update their cities. Also economically.
So basically, they're like the new businesses went boom, and Savannah still builds ships to this day. During World War II, from 1941 to 1945, the Bell Aircraft Corporation, also known as the Bell Bomber Plant, transformed Marietta from the small seat of rural Cobb County into one of the main industrial centers of the Sun Belt.
Yeah, so it helped develop large cities like Savannah and Marietta just through this war. Also, Lockheed Martin bought out the B-29 plant, and they still build planes to this day, and new jobs were formed during the World War II. So now, and I think this is like the most important thing that we should know, Georgia's contributions to World War II in the war and on the home front. So Georgia built hundreds of Liberty ships that brought supplies to the eastern and western fronts. And they also built B-29 bombers and had lots of naval bases that were built in Savannah and Brunswick. So there were also about 320.
Yeah, big number.
320,000 Georgians who served in the war.
A bunch of them, bunch of Georgians built B-29s. Naval bases were built in Savannah and Brunswick.
Yeah.
Georgia built war bonds. They constructed Liberty ships, and jobs opened up for women's and training facilities were created.
So like Evan said, World War II was a big time for the women because we can finally work, guys. And that's pretty much all we have to know about World War II as a whole for Georgia and for the milestones. And should we sign them off, Evan? Should we say goodbye?
Too many bottles of this wine we can't pronounce. Too many bowls of that green, no lucky charms. The maids come around too much. Parents ain't no